You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another action-packed episode of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and with me, as always, is the salt to my pepper, the butter to my margarine, the Coke to my rum, Dougie Draper. How are you, bud?
I love it. Hey, I'm actually doing pretty well. Thank you. Just coming off a busy weekend, enjoying life, and ready to rock and roll on this show today.
You made me care about basketball, Doug, and I hope you're satisfied with yourself because I am actually rooting for your Kansas Jayhawks because I want to see you happy with your team winning. So I'm invested in the success of your team. So I just want you to know that,
Thank you.
is normally a death sentence for any athletic team if I care about them, but they appear to still be doing well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I was going to be obnoxious, and Troy's he was born in Lawrence, Kansas. I can tell you that story a little bit later. Born, forged, and crafted in Lawrence, Kansas. So he's a huge Jayhawk fan. That's why he's red and blue. But anyway, the obnoxiousness will transpire next week if they ended up winning. But I decided to keep it low key and go from there.
All right. Hopes and prayers, my friend. Hopes and prayers. Well, with that being said, we might as well just roll on into it. So, Doug, we've done the coin flip. You have elected to receive. And with that, why don't you start us off with our first topic, buddy?
All right. I will. Let's do it. So this, the thing I love about this show, Pete, is we're just like all over the place in a good way. And maybe some of the audience is like, these guys are all over the place. I can't stand it. But that's just how we operate. So the first one is related to 3D printing and the supply chain. And I saw some press on that the other day about how this could be a solution to solve some of the supply chain chaos and essentially use 3D printing to make more stuff domestically. So that's where the topic came from. And I put it in the category, Pete, of RFID, radio frequency ID, that was like super hip 15 years ago, quantum computing, which you've talked about, and drones, which I've talked about. And now I'll put 3D printing in there. First and foremost, Pete, I'm a believer in 3D printing. I think it's cool. I think it has certain applications. But to come across and save the world and do things that aren't realistic in this day and age, I'd put that in the RFID, drone, quantum computing category. Sounds good. It's talked about a little bit. Has great potential, but the practicality of it is pretty minimal. So the idea of reshoring and trying to make stuff with a 3D printer is just, it's not going to happen. As far as like new product development, contract manufacturing, because you want to find out the best way to make this widget. I think that's awesome, and I think it's working. But if to do massive scale, cost barrier, I think is a little out of hand. I know you've seen the 3D printing houses and things of that nature. It's a great lead story, human interest, and gets everybody's attention. But the one thing is it's good for a closed loop. I'm probably not going to say this right. The closed loop kind of private supply chain. And the best thing I could think of, Pete, would be like military applications, where you could set up shop in another country and mass produce something that would be needed there in the field. It's not being sold. It's being consumed relatively quickly. It's protecting or providing some sort of protecting humans, providing some sort of service, what I would refer to as closed loop. But until there's advancements, in the hardware, the printable material, and design software is getting better. So anybody that thinks it's going to save the world in the foreseeable future is just not really understanding the concept of 3D printing. So my take, Pete, is slow the roll. 3D printing is an interesting concept, and that's what it is still. It will evolve, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go. But for anything to fix the situation we're in right now, is ludicrous. So there you go. There's my 3D printing take on the current supply chain world.
You know, Doug, just when I think that I'm the old crank in this relationship,
Yeah.
you reveal yourself to be the grandpa fussy britches out of the two of us. And it makes me so happy, because then I get to feel like the young one out of the two of us. My friend, you and I could not disagree more right now. I have seen more 3D printed guns, 3D printed car parts, motorcycle parts, 3D printed pieces of machinery from motorcycles that couldn't be made, that couldn't buy it anymore. So someone 3D printed something in order to get a car or a motorcycle moving again. And not to mention the fact that 3D printing is going to be an important part of how we're going to Mars. You can't just rebuild parts and pieces of something. It's going to be done on the fly. And 3D printing is being used right now all over the country in all kinds of ways to very quickly and easily make. I'll give you one great example. Mm-hmm. So right now, all over the place, a very popular fashion item are what are called cloud slippers. Cloud slippers. Now, you and I would never wear these. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm a fashion plate. I mean, and not to mention a bit of a sneakerhead, right? But I don't wear cloud slippers, just not my thing. But these are 3D printed footwear. You can buy them today. They're specially made. They have a very special look to them. And they're 3D printed, mailed to you the next day. They used to be made in Japan and China. Now they're being made all over the US on these 3D printers and being sent out. I know your big thing is mass produced, but this is how it starts. This was the same argument that people had about iPhones, the same argument that people had about MP3 players, the same argument people had about Bluetooth speakers. My friend, join me in the revolution. I'm telling you, this is the way it could happen. When I was out on college tours with Mongo, before he just committed Division I rugby, playing for Nazareth. I believe it was a top 20 Division I national team. They have a whole maker laboratory in most big colleges now, where you go down there and everything from keg cups to you name it. Like if you want to make it, they have a design laboratory now using 3D printing that you can use to make this stuff. Doug, I'm telling you, you and I might not understand this, but the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be everywhere. It's an important part of design, an important part of furniture design, an important part of fashion. This is where it's going, my friend. It's going to be in like trucks. People in trucks are going to be 3D printing parts to get their trucks back on the road again. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you, man. Yeah. This is how it's going to go.
It's still a ways out. The simple fact that he said, this is how we're going to solve our problems going to Mars, that statement in and of itself, I mean, I was like, exactly my point. It's good in the future. It's not helping us now. So
it's helping us
anyway, there's some tchotchkes out there being made, here, you can make this thing right here with a 3D printer. But anyway, I don't know if we disagree per se, but
we do.
I think still it's got a long way to go.
I bet Keenan can find articles right now for us about how people using 3D printers to make stents for hearts, like on demand in medical facilities right now. And when I finally do have my huge cardiac episode and they have to make me one, it'll be 3D printers that save me and save this show.
All right.
Anyway, on to my first topic.
Yes,
Speaking of my personal habits, food, eating. We all love to do it. And there's been a lot of talk recently about President Biden making an interesting comment recently when he was in Europe saying, food shortages, yes, they're going to happen. I believe that was the quote. I'm not sure if it's the exact quote, but his comment was, we keep hearing about food shortages, and I think we all need to get ready to accept that these are going to be a reality. Food security is not the kind of thing that we as Americans really worry about, right? I mean, in the hierarchy of needs, having a place to sleep, having something to eat, and what's the third one? Food, clothing, and energy or security.
Shelter.
I think those are the ones. Yeah, shelter. Those are pretty much the simple ones. And as Americans, we've always been able to be confident that we're going to have something to eat. I mean, we're the heartland of the world. We're the breadbasket of the world. But because of the rising price of fertilizer, the fact that we have this real big serious problem with Russia at the moment, and some interesting problems that come from that, given that there have been nothing less than famines in parts of the Middle East, parts of Africa, and we're having fertilizer shortages all over the world, and now supply chain issues. We talked about this. We did. This is another one of those we told you so moments. We talked about the possibility of food shortages, but we didn't talk about them happening here. This could hit our shores, meat shortages, and that, along with an incredible increase in costs, is going to find Americans probably paying upwards of anywhere from 30 to 40% more on the normal staples in our baskets when we go to the grocery stores, starting next quarter, Doug. Next quarter. The basic things, everything from milk, cheese, eggs, poultry, beef, pork, bacon, it's all going to become more expensive. And it seems the government's answer is eat more soy. Let me tell you something, dude. You do not power 270 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal like Dr. Pete Mento with soy. So I don't know how this is all going to work out, buddy. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it being the way that's going to work out, man. So food shortages are real. We have to find a way we're going to manage them. And I think that this is just another one of those signs of the apocalypse, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The interesting thing that when I was looking through some of the list, right, this is like everything: dairy, food, plant-based proteins, fruits and vegetables, things that are made of fruits and vegetables, things that are made with produce, canned goods, imported foods, bottled water, soda, paper goods, pasta, booze. First of all, as long as there's Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Oreos out in the world, we're good. Okay. And if I have to eat it dry without milk, I'll do it. But if those two things are hopefully neither one of those are it's processed, so hopefully we're good there. But the one thing I'd say about this, Pete, is it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more we talk about it, the more people are going to hear about it, the more panicked they're going to become. And instead of buying one box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch from Sam's that actually has a 2-pack that lasts about a week and a half for me, they'll buy 5. And then I'll see somebody with buying 5 in the grocery store, and I'll have a conversation about, why are you buying 5? Haven't you heard yada, yada, yada? And then I turn around and go buy another 4. So part of it is just the human nature. It's the more we talk about it, the more panicked people are going to be, and the more shelves are going to be empty. So it'll be an interesting next 3 months or so, I think. But good topic.
Yeah, buddy. Well, that brings us to halftime, brought to you by our good friends at Cap Logistics. To learn more about the nice people who continue to support this show for reasons that I'm sure stun everyone, you can learn about them at caplogistics.com. They're the folks that keep Keenan, much against his will, I believe, at this point, working on this show, and make sure that it stays online. So with that, Doug, what you got for us at halftime, buddy?
This is a good one. I just saw Fred Smith, founder, CEO of FedEx, is retiring, I think, on June 1st, which is cool. First of all, he's 77 years old, and the fact that he's been running that ship, running that plane, driving that boat for like 50 years is amazing. If you asked me how old Fred Smith was, I'd like, I don't know, 95. So the fact, first of all, that he's 77 shows, how incredibly forward-thinking he was, and the incredible industry that he helped create and company that he helped create. I have no affinity to FedEx or UPS or any of those, but I'll tell you what, man, that's the retirement of a legend, and I think it was pretty impressive. The coolest thing, and I'll encourage our audience, because some of the younger listeners may not have understood this, but the FedEx commercials from the 80s, when I think the slogan went, it absolutely, positively needs to be there overnight.
Federal Express, when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight.
The cool thing is there was no technology to fast forward or speed up somebody's the way they talk, right? You couldn't just turn it up to 1.5 and have them talk faster. But on these commercials, there's one guy that's kind of running the show in his company. He is talking so fast.
Congratulations on your deal in Denver, Dave. I'm putting you down to deal with Dallas. Don, is it a deal? Do we have a deal? It's a deal. I got to go. I got a call coming in.
And moving it like it's a 1-minute commercial. It was awesome. Anyway, this is Fred Smith. Amazing career, an industry that's been transformational. And for all of you to go have a laugh, go look at the 1980s commercials from FedEx. They're hilarious.
Yeah, and I believe, and I'm sure Keenan will back this up for us. So I believe that his college, his master's degree thesis was on the idea, and I don't think he got a very good grade. I think he got like a B on it or a C or something, and his professor said that this isn't a viable business case. And I think he got the last laugh on that one.
Yeah.
So good for you, Mr. Smith. Although we're all sick and tired of competing with your company, good for you, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
And
all right, Pete, we're queuing you up for the topic of the week, my man.
Yeah. So as a performer, as a former professional stand-up comedian, I have to talk about Chris Rock and Will Smith. And my opinion is nuanced from a number of different perspectives. The first is, as someone who's been on stage and told some things that probably should have gotten me slapped, I've been there. And I have on a number of occasions had someone rush the stage and either try to or succeed in assaulting me while I have been telling jokes. And I can tell you that the difference between what happened to me and what happened to Chris Rock is that anytime anyone has ever rushed the stage to assault me, they have been escorted out immediately after. They've never remained after they've tried to come after me. That's what security is for. Secondly, that's part of the deal. Is it's a joke, and what you're going to say is, you should realize that there could be repercussions for it, but I don't think that you should have to deal with them while you're up there telling a joke. It's part of telling a joke. But another part of me is, I have a lot of respect for anyone who'll go up there and say what they're going to say, knowing that that's the situation that they're going to be in. My real problem, though, is normalizing the idea that it's okay to go up and assault somebody for basically saying something entertaining, saying something that is, in effect, art. Stand-up comedy is one of the only true American art forms. It's up there with jazz, and it's up there with musical theater. And the idea that someone can go up there and speak freely and say something entertaining and be able to do so in a way that makes people laugh is not easy to do. I know a lot of you think that it is. But then to be able to do it, go up there and have to worry about being assaulted, that's part of the gig. It's not the first time Chris Rock has had someone assault him on stage, I assure you. It might not be the last either. Mm-hmm. But the idea that we thought it was okay for everyone to stand up and applaud him after he did it, that's where I have a problem. Now, on the other side of that, talk smack about my girl, I'm probably going to smack you back. Second part of this, I had tickets available at $100 a piece to go see Chris Rock on his first night of his North American tour, which is actually tomorrow in Boston. $110 face value. The resale on them right now is just shy of $800. I can't wait to hear what he's going to say, because if I was Chris Rock, my hour tomorrow night would be about nothing but Will Smith, his wife, and his 2 kids for 60 minutes. Never, ever, ever forget that in the end, the comedian has an hour with a microphone. You can smack him once. He's going to spend the rest of his life getting you back. And that's what I got for halftime, Doug.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be an interesting topic. The simple fact that I don't even know how to properly say this, not to get in trouble, but the simple fact that you can go up on stage, hit somebody, and go back down and sit in your chair just clearly defines that the different world, if you have money and fame, you can kind of do a lot of things that the normal human cannot. If anybody, Pete, you and I did that in any realm of our existence, are you kidding me?
It never worked again.
It wouldn't work. So anyway, I don't want to go into that, but I just, that's what struck me is that you went up there, did it, sat down, didn't say a damn thing, and nobody did anything about it.
Yeah. My favorite tweet of all, and I've seen a lot of them, is would he have done it if it had been Joe Rogan, or let Joe Rogan go give the speech next year? And, we all know I've been there many times, and I've seen Joe in those situations. Nobody is going up there and giving Joe that kind of shit. And if they thought they were going to, it would have ended very differently. From personal experience, I can tell you that there wouldn't have been a whole lot of folks, first of all, standing up and doing that. And second of all, if they were dumb enough, it wouldn't have ended that way. It would have been a very different conclusion to that interaction. So, it's kind of sad now that you've got to worry about that being normal. And I hope that we all got a big lesson out of this. But the big one is learn to take a joke, but also remember there are repercussions for your actions. Be ready for it. And every comedian I know, don't play the victim. And Chris Rock didn't. He kept up. He was professional. He finished his set. He sat down. And now Now I guess we'll hear what he has to say about it.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting tomorrow night when that happens.
Yeah.
All right, Doug, what's your next topic?
All right. Mine is something that just popped up recently that we've talked about. And I actually went back, Pete, and looked at a couple shows. It was back in early January. So I'm going to refer to this because on that global trade topic, if you go back to the January 12th episode, Keenan so eloquently called it, the secondary ports are poised for prosperity. And there's been a lot of talk out there about how East Coast ports, Gulf Coast ports are primed for an explosion of volume, simply because the West Coast ports are jammed. And that's fine. I think that is very valid. But one thing I always have talked about, Pete, is the connectors and what happens after the vessel arrives, right? So I think not only do we focus on, oh my gosh, how big is the port in this market, and can Savannah handle all of this, and all these different ports, but I think more importantly is, can the infrastructure on the domestic front handle it? I'm talking about, is there enough drayage companies? Is there enough equipment? Is there enough warehousing? Do carriers and LTL and FTL providers have enough assets and equipment and drivers to take product out of those markets? Because the headline news talks about all the boats that are off the water that are static and you can see them in a picture. What is hard to see is the craziness that comes after it gets off the boat, and all the people, the services, the equipment needed to move it inland. And so I think that is going to be an interesting piece to look at. So if anybody listening wants free advice from somebody that's been in the industry for a while, that kind of knows a little bit and doesn't know a lot, is that if you stabilize your domestic supply chain and you figure out how the connectors work, I think you're going to be better positioned to control your environment. You can't control the vessel, but you can have more control whenever it hits by selecting the right warehouses, the carriers, the people. So analyze what happens to your products and services once you hit the U.S. But you factor in the Shanghai and the China stuff going on that you're going to talk about here in a second, Pete. But you know what? The East Coast ports are going to explode and blow up, and there's going to be a lot of benefit. There's going to be a lot of congestion, a lot of frustration and excitement. But be ready, and if you're on the domestic side and you have those assets, be prepared, because there could be opportunities there to really provide some dazzling service and provide some good resources for companies out there. So there you go. What I'm trying to think of the words that Keenan said. Secondary ports are poised for prosperity. We talked about it in January.
Yeah, buddy. You really hit on something super important there. I think that there's a misunderstanding amongst folks that haven't been doing this a long time, that once the container gets there, the job's over. And it's not. There's a lot of secondary things that happen, and they're just as important. And actually, because there's so many additional moving parts, they're actually even more complicated. Getting a chassis, getting a driver, getting a truck, having all those magical things happen at once, having space at where it's being delivered to actually drop it off, getting it returned. These are all very complicated things that we take for granted. And by shifting your volume to the East Coast from the West Coast, that's great. But now you've added significantly more frustration and a lot more complexity to getting that all done on the other coast. And you're not novel, right? You're not some genius that thought this up and no one else did. Everybody's been thinking about doing this too. So it's sort of like when you go to the restaurant at the strip mall and you can't get a seat. You think, we'll go to the strip mall next door. Instead of going to Longhorns, we're going to go to the other corporate steakhouse. Well, guess what? There's going to be a wait there too. And it's probably going to be just as bad. So the issue I have with this, Doug, is that the steamship lines and the freight forwarders, they're out there pushing this to people who don't realize it's going to be just as frustrating because they have leftover space. And it's causing more trouble than it's probably worth. Mm. If we have a West Coast port, I think there's people who have an unrealistic expectation that this is going to be some God moment, some savior moment, where you're going to have some messianic opportunity to fix all of your problems. No, we're going to have a tremendous amount of congestion and a lot of problems getting cargo through there. And then when this all starts up again, it's going to be like COVID all over again, depending on how long the backup was on the West Coast. You're going to have an awful backup on the East Coast, and crap's starting up all over again on the West Coast. So, I just think we're in for a real problem here, Doug, if that does happen. But you bring up some great points, and I think people just aren't paying attention. Buddy.
All right. But better than the 3D printing?
Much better.
Okay,
than 3D printing,
cool.
though.
All right, bring us home, man. Your topic, your final one, John, with that.
Yeah, so last topic here, tough week for those of us who are importing from Shanghai and the shutdowns, the COVID shutdowns. Doug and I called this one again. This feels like we're dunking on these fools this week, right? So we had talked earlier that there was earlier this year during our prediction show that we said that the zero COVID policy was going to be a problem, and it's turned out to be. 2 major ports, Shanghai, of course, this week as well, where so much has been shut down. And you got a lot of capacity now that's being backed up that is not moving. It's going to be a couple of weeks, it looks like, as ports, CFSs, terminals, trucks are still moving. But so many operations in Shanghai now are basically at a standstill, and cargo is not moving. Good thing, bad thing. It's a bad thing because we don't have cargo leaving China when we already have a supply chain issue. It could be a bit of a good thing because maybe it'll give people a little bit of room to catch up. I don't know. But when we're already so backed up trying to get a hold of inventory, it's just not a good situation to be in. And particularly when you're in this really important part of time, just coming out of Lunar New Year, just coming out of the Olympics, people were just starting to get back on top of their inventory. There appeared to be this glimmer of sunshine. And, it's back to gray skies, bud. So right as we're getting into April, and there's all this inconsistency that's coming along and uncertainty of, is there going to be a port strike in May? And we're all trying to dump as much inventory as we can before that happens. Bam! COVID shutdowns. It's like somebody scripted it, man. It's like somebody scripted it. So really tough. But again, we called it, bud.
Yeah, I think when you shot that one, it's like the immediate thing I thought it was like a wave pool at a water park, right? You got this, you're kind of floating around, you're waiting for it to come. It comes, it's chaos. All the kids scream. It's just this crashing of waves. And then it kind of stops and there's a lull, and we're kind of in this lull, and you fix your goggles because you just kind of got jacked up, and you pull your suit up because it almost fell off. And you know the next one's coming, and you can kind of hear the machine cranking. You know it's going to come. It has this big sucking sound, and then boom, as you said, it hits again. And then there's controlled chaos. And I think we're going to see a wave machine in a water park multiple times for multiple reasons over the next year. So there's the water park analogy. Pete, you told me a good story can help paint a clear picture. So hopefully that helped explain at least the way I see it.
Doug, it always warms my heart when I see you actually listen to my advice on how to be entertaining. And also, this isn't a neutral colored sweater today. So got a little brightness on it. So if UK makes it, are we going to see you dressed up in all your finery on Monday?
Yeah, so I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's not UK, it's KU. UK is Kentucky, and they dropped out after the first round. So it's Kansas University, or University of Kansas, but they go by KU. So yes, there will be some obnoxiousness that I will bring to the table if they indeed win the national championship. Thanks for that.
Okay, yeah, not to be obnoxious, but I don't worry about whether or not my school plays well in sports. More renowned for our academics.
All right. Well, we'll leave it on that.
In any case, Doug, you got to take us out now.
Well, it's always fun. We covered a lot of topics today, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate, Pete, here's the transition. Appreciate Cap Logistics for making this thing go down, because you and I banter back and forth. But if Keenan wasn't pushing the buttons and turning the levers, this wouldn't happen. So I just want to thank Keenan personally and Cap Logistics for giving us the platform. Great group over there. Thank you very much. And that ends Global Trade this week for this week. Pete, as always, love it. I seriously just genuinely laugh every time you and I talk, and I love it. And that is it. So thanks for joining us. Listen, comment, give us your feedback. That's what we listen. That's what we hope for. So Global Trade this week. We're out of here. See you, Pete.
See ya. Bye, Doug. See ya.